Deep within the walls of every institution, there are secrets. Some of these secrets are easy to understand. Like, don't drink someone else's oat milk that's in the shared fridge and clearly has their name and do not drink written on it. But some of these secrets, some of them are less overt, less clear, and sometimes even malicious. Like how some institutions seem to not hire people from certain social backgrounds. All of these secrets, big and small, are called the hidden curriculum. Okay, that might be a bit dramatic because this video is ultimately about turning your academic CV into an industry resume, but it is part of the hidden curriculum. This refers to the unwritten, unofficial, and sometimes unintentional lessons and values that some students learn at school or university. The reason the hidden curriculum is, let's call it a problem, is because it can be used as a tool to keep certain people or groups of people from succeeding. When I was first applying to jobs after my PhD, I simply Googled how to make a CV and followed the advice I found online. I didn't actually know there were academic CVs that differ quite drastically to industry resumes. It was only when my boyfriend brought me to meet one of his friends who is a senior professor, when he said, you need to make your CV based on academic standards, that I even knew there were academic standards for a CV. Having people around me who are senior in my industry is a privilege, and having correct CV standards is absolutely a way people will gatekeep you out of the industry you want to be in. So, in this video, I'm going to help you turn your academic CV into an industry resume, because you don't know what you don't know. The first thing you need to do is open up your academic CV. If you don't know how to make one of those, I have another video on that just here. There are some constants, like keeping your name front and center. For your title, people in industry don't necessarily know the terminology relevant to your degree. Honestly, I don't know the difference half the time between a postdoctoral research fellow, a doctoral candidate, a postgraduate researcher. It's all a bit muddied. So for industry, choose a title that accurately describes what you do, but also relates to the job you're applying for. For me, I put organizational psychologist, expert in equality, diversity, and inclusion, because that's what I am. If you don't have a specific title, find one that resonates and makes sense to a wider audience. And don't be afraid to ask people if your title is something that's understood outside of your field. It's also okay to highlight a key feature of your title strategically. If you're applying for a role that asks for analytical skills, then your title can be PhD quantitative analyst. After your title, include your mobile number, personal email, and where you live. This is all a personal choice, but it doesn't hurt, and it is typically the norm for most jobs. Then comes the first key difference between an academic CV and an industry resume, and that's style. Academic CVs have a very distinct and simple pattern of text. An industry resume, on the other hand, can reflect some of your personal style, but it shouldn't be too fancy. A lot of the templates I found on Canva when I was looking to make mine were just a bit much. Too much color, too much design, just kind of showy. If you're applying for a role in graphic design or another really creative field, then maybe this is right for you. You should find a look that reflects you. But if you're coming from academia and moving into industry like I did, then it's best if you can include some creativity, like I did with the yellow, to show I'm fun, but not too fun. You know? I think this yellow is simple and clean. It's not perfect, but it will do, and it got me a job. The next biggest difference is brevity. A CV includes nearly everything you've done and the dates you did them, with publications, certifications, training, everything. A resume is a 1 to 2 page document that summarizes your work experience. Now, I will say that over the years, there's been a lot of talk about whether a resume should be 1 page or 2 page. I submitted to roles and was interviewed with 2 pages. I don't think that if you have a 2-page resume, that'll be the reason you don't get a job. However, if you're a recent graduate with limited experience, you do not need more than 2 pages. So let's get into the good stuff. What makes a good resume? The key to writing a good resume is using examples, quantifying your experience, and tailoring it to the job description. For example, as you can see here, I have something called professional overview. It summarizes what I've done. It doesn't use common buzzwords like enthusiastic team player. We're all enthusiastic team players. It is a bit fluffy, but it highlights the key points. Next, we see skill summary. This is where you can include the most important things you have that are asked for in the job description. If they ask for skills in particular software or for certain experience, put it here. And tailor this to each job. My examples might not be the best because I don't know the job you're applying to, but try to be as specific as possible. For example, if the job posting asks for someone in data analytics, write down the software and programs you're familiar with. Then there's education. Pretty self-explanatory, but don't provide more detail than you need to. They'll know what a master's degree is. Then we get into the actual experience. As you can see here, I've titled it HR experience because the job I was applying to had a section titled HR experience. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've used subheadings and bolded them for clarity. Then I've described each subheading with bullet points. Using bullet points is a bit of a contentious issue for resumes. While I would never use one for an academic CV, I don't see a problem using it here. The key is again to focus on specific examples. Don't say, I'm a good facilitator. Say, responsible for training in psychometrics for the British Psychological Society with successful completion of over 300 new members over 3 years. That's a deliverable, an outcome. It quantifies my ability to train people. And although that sounds like a lot of jargon, any job I was applying to would understand what that meant. Another example, don't say experience with HR related tasks. Say conducted induction training and exit interviews for Vodafone and Lululemon. That's specific to the companies that I worked for and it's to the point. I notice sometimes that people think that by being non-specific, you're stretching out your experience a bit in the hope that they'll ask you something in the interview. But that's just not how it works. You need to be clear about what you did and what the outcome was. When you're vague, you just come off as inexperienced. I then also had a section on outreach and engagement because I felt it fit with the job description. I wanted to highlight specific things I've done and ways I've contributed to the community that makes me a good fit. For example, I put things in here like guest lectures or mentorship because although it wasn't specifically in the job description, it is something that makes you a strong candidate. You can use this section to add anything you want the recruitment panel to know that might not fit. Finally, you see I have my actual work experience. This is where you can briefly include the specifics of the places you've worked. And once again, this is a big difference between an industry resume and an academic CV. An industry resume is skills focused. So I've already focused at the top on the things that I can do, on the things I've delivered and my past performance, instead of focusing exclusively on experience. As a recent graduate, you might not have much work experience. Maybe you do if you went to university later in life, but if you went straight from undergrad, it's likely you don't have much here, and that's fine. So be concise, be specific, and focus on skills and deliverables. And that's it. 2 pages, neatly spaced, easy to read font, nothing fancy. A resume is usually only one part of a larger application package. You'll probably also fill in an application form and should submit a cover letter. Then, if you're successful, you'll probably have a few rounds of interviews with different people at the company. It can be tempting to submit the same resume for multiple jobs because applying for jobs is basically a full-time job. But if you can, try to tailor each resume to the job description. It will be worth it in the end. Or at least focus the specific things like your title, the professional overview, and the skill summary on each individual job you're applying to. If you're thinking of leaving academia to go into industry, then my video on how and why I quit my lectureship will be helpful to you. It's a bit more personal, but I talk about the signs it was time for me to leave and how I actually did it. Check it out, and I'd love to hear in the comments what kind of role you're looking for if you're leaving academia. Or if you're staying in academia, I'd love to know what you study. Thanks, and see you in the next video.